Hey, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining today's webinar titled "The Benefits of the Float Tray Seed Benefits, sorry, of Float Tray Seedling Production." I'm thrilled to share how this innovative system can transform your farming practices. So by the end of this particular session, you understand the key benefits of the float tray, from space optimization to higher yield, and how to implement them. Let's dive in. So this will be the outline of my presentation. I will quickly take you through the introduction to the float tray seedling production system. We'll quickly touch on the benefits of the float tray system, and then we'll wrap it up by concluding. So as an introduction, what is the float tray seedling production sort of system? Simply put, it is a method where seedlings grow in trays, floating in a nutrient-rich water, right? A nutrient-rich water source. It's basically versatile and basically perfect for tobacco, horticulture, as well as plantation crops. So unlike the conventional seedbed system, float trays basically eliminate what we call soil-borne challenges or pathogens, right? And they give your seedlings somewhat of uniformity, robustness of the seedlings, right? Now let's explore why this system is such a game changer. So one of the first benefits of this particular technology would be the space optimization, right? Space and efficiency. So float trays basically reduce the seedbed area by about 5 times, and the system is basically suitable for small scale and urban setups, right? So your small scale growers, urban farmers, you basically save land while growing more. The next one is to do with the pest and disease management, right? So the system allows you to reduce what we call, as I mentioned, soil-borne diseases. It's easier to scout and to monitor for pest and diseases, and it's also easier to sort of cut down on the use of heavy chemicals. And basically, the system becomes environmentally sustainable. In terms of labor, the system is highly efficient, and it's easier to maintain your seedlings in a float tray system. When it comes to water, you're looking at minimum water usage. You're doing a lot less weeding, and basically you're looking at streamlined processes, right, that reduce costs to do with the use of manual labor. So basically, we're minimizing the weeding, efficient watering, and streamlined processes, less manual labor, and basically you're able to lower your costs. When it comes to enhancing seedling growth, the system is also very, very good at providing you with superior, more uniform seedlings. These particular seedlings grow very well, very robust rooting systems when you start off with the float tray system. And when you're just about to transplant, you're looking at reduced transplanting shock, right? And you're giving those particular seedlings an added boost during the early stages of their growth after transplanting. The second, no, not the second one, but the other benefit of the system, we're looking at cost effectiveness. Here we're basically looking at lower input costs, labor savings, and the use of fewer chemicals, right? And this basically adds up to a higher return on investment for the grower. And this is just a quick table that demonstrates the cost effectiveness of the system. As you can see, we've got on your far left, those are the categories, right? Your consumables, basically, your fertilizer, your chemicals, the seed, labor, fuel, and administration and contingency costs. right? And the second column there is now showing you the costs that are related to the flow tray system. And this is the initial cost. So as you can see right at the total, down at the total, the cost is a bit or quite expensive during the initial stages, right? So when you're starting off the system will definitely be around $487. These prices will fluctuate given the season, the year, but that's basically a ballpark figure for that. So if you look at the third column now, you're looking at the flow tray system in subsequent years, right? There's a drastic reduction in the costs required to set up the system, almost by half, right? And last but not least, the column on the far right, we've got that particular costs for running a conventional seedbed system. So what we're basically saying here is during the initial stages of setting up a flow tray system, the system will definitely cost a bit more. But on subsequent years, you'll definitely realize that there are savings that are attached to using the system compared to the conventional system, right? If you can see those sections highlighted in red, those are some of the costs. Initial cost for the flow tray system for chemicals, that's around $12. For subsequent years, that figure sort of remains the same, but it's very high when you look at the conventional system at $103. If you look at the consumable side of things, you've got around $325. That's the initial cost for running the flow tray system. But as you go into the subsequent years, that figure drops drastically. You've got $147 and none basically for the conventional system. But when you look at issues to do with labor now, so initial cost for the flow tray system, as I mentioned, those are some of the benefits, reduced labor costs. So it's low in the initial stages, low in the subsequent stages, but it's very much high in the conventional system. And we want to really emphasize the fact that the conventional system does take on a lot of labor. Okay, so one of the last maybe benefits that is very clear to us is the one on the high yield potential, right? So we've basically been doing some studies in the past year where we're looking at some of these benefits arising from the system. And basically what you're seeing there, higher yields coming from healthier seedlings, higher yields, right? Seedling production practices have the strongest impact on yield. And these are some of the findings that we're able to identify from some of the surveys that we did in the previous year. So I'm going to share some of those insights. So basically a national survey that we did where we were looking at knowledge, attitudes, as well as practices of our tobacco growers in Zimbabwe. And that picture on the left, the Zimbabwean map, is basically showing you the regions that we're able to sample. So those are farmers coming from different regions in Zimbabwe or tobacco growers. So what we're able to see here is that you will appreciate that yield is definitely a function of many things. And specifically in this slide, I'm showing what we're calling knowledge gaps. And these knowledge gaps span from soil management and fertilizer, irrigation and water management, all the way up to varietal selection and breeding. We also have attitudinal issues. These are to do with your perception, right? Perception of certain techniques, technologies. Are you motivated to use those said techniques? And last but not least, we're looking at the practices, right? What are you doing as a grower? What technologies are you actually deploying on your farming enterprise, right? So what we realized is practices to do with seedling production, right? If you can look and appreciate the graph that I'm showing you right now, we're looking at a graph that's demonstrating tobacco growers about 82% using the conventional system And as much as I've explained all the benefits to do with the float tray system, we still realize that a lot of the growers in Zimbabwe are still heavily reliant on the conventional system, 82% and more. When it comes to the float tray system, a very small number, you're looking at about 17% that are still using the float tray system, and just 1%, as you can see the comment there, these are farmers. Just 1% is basically farmers who aren't necessarily concerned about how they are raising their seedlings, be it conventional float tray. But this particular graph really shows us that in as much as we've talked about all these benefits to do with the float tray system, you still have a very large chunk of our farmers utilizing the conventional system over the float tray. But what then are we saying? So if we then look at some of the research findings or the survey findings that we're able to get, we quickly realize when it comes to the yield, right, farmers that are using the conventional system are actually realizing a lot less yields compared to the farmers using the float tray system, as illustrated in the graph on your screen. So when you use the float tray system, you're bound to get a lot more as compared to the conventional system. And this is basically tying in very well with some of the benefits that I mentioned, rigorous rooting system, disease-free seedlings and things like that. And that equates to actually higher yields when it comes to your reaping, curing, and baling and sell. So basically those results are summed up in this particular slide, where we quickly realize that farmers that are using our float tray methods, right, gained about 600 kgs of tobacco compared to the conventional method. And the reasoning behind this is basically that agronomic improvements such as the float tray system will definitely enhance your seedling health, reduce your transplant shock, and improve plant growth. So I can't emphasize enough the importance of using the float tray system over the conventional system. So in terms of call to action, we're basically saying if you're ready to elevate your farming, right, you need to definitely, or you need to just invest in the float tray systems. With that particular system, we're looking at a thriving yields. We're looking at superior disease control, and we're looking at the added advantage of gaining a bit more yield compared to the conventional system. So all these supplies are available at Kutsaga in our stores scattered across the country. Don't let outdated methods limit your potential. Thank you so much for your time.